Hi, I'm Don Keller of Catalf Advertising, and today we're going to talk about how we approach creating an e-commerce site. As you can imagine, e-commerce sales have really skyrocketed, and everybody wants to be online to sell their products. So today I've got my web genius here, Charlie Miller, and Charlie's going to tell us the software that we use and how we go about that, because if you haven't created an e-commerce site before, there's always a lot of questions on what's the best way to go about it, what should I use, where should I host it, that type of thing. Can you give me a little breakdown on how we go about creating a site? And I will ask some questions as they come up.
Sure. Well, generally we start with the design process and then the approval process. So then we have what the website's going to look like and how it's going to function. Then we're generally going to use something like Wordpress to build the site.
And Wordpress is what?
It's an open source software for creating websites.
And is there any cost for using Wordpress?
There is no cost for WordPress itself now.
All right, so we could just, if somebody came to us and said, I need a website, I need an e-commerce website, right, we could easily use that software for free. So there's no charge for that portion of creating a website.
Right, correct, yes.
Okay.
There is some charges for hosting and some charges for if you want to register a domain, you got to pay for that. And your credit card processing, that often costs a fee, sometimes per transaction or sometimes a flat fee depending on how much you're selling.
Let's talk about hosting for a minute. As you can imagine, there's thousands of places you could host a site.
Right.
So without naming names, let's just tell how we go about hosting a site and why we chose that particular host over somebody else.
We're generally going to try to find a host that is a good price, and we're going to look for the use of an Apache web server, and that's going to give us a lot of control. It's going to give us a control panel in the hosting account that we have control over most aspects of the website: backups, creating email, installing software. So it's going to give us the most bang for the buck.
Why do we choose a particular host that has this Apache server? What's so special? Why not the cheapest guy out there?
Well, with the control panel, often included in the price is the ability to do backups. So if you make a change to your website, you want to do a backup first in case something goes wrong, especially if you're updating software, updating plugins. Occasionally you run into a little trouble where you might need to take a step back, reinstall the backup, and then do some troubleshooting.
What about security?
Generally, hosting sites are going to have built-in security. They're going to be managing their own networks on that level. Then on the level of the actual website, we're going to install a plugin. There's several different kinds, but we're going to install a plugin that gives you locally on that website, in that WordPress installation, some of user-controlled security features.
Security is important. Why?
Well, if you're going to be collecting in an e-commerce site, if you're going to collect credit card data and personal data, you're responsible if that software is breached and people steal credit card numbers or people's names and addresses.
Okay, well that's obviously pretty important. Yeah. You don't want to be putting your customers' information into the wrong hands. Let's get back to WordPress. You mentioned that it's an open source software. And just quickly, can you tell me, the people that are viewing here, what is open source software?
It's software that anyone can develop with. You're going to find a very, very rich ecosystem of plugin developers and software developers that have a breadth of knowledge that you're not going to necessarily have with proprietary systems like, say, Shopify or what's one of the other ones that are out there?
Wix,
Wix or something like that, right? Squarespace, things like that.
A lot of sites that require you to build on their platform. WordPress, and I don't want to take this away from you, Charlie, but just to clarify for our viewers, WordPress can be hosted on your own site, on your own host.
Right.
So you're responsible for updating that version of WordPress as the life of your site goes on. And that is important because there are improvements that are made.
And there are often security patches too that get included in the updates.
And as you can imagine, a lot of people are out there that try to get into your site, and we're very aware of that. We ourselves have seen that type of behavior on our site, and we get notified by some of the software that we use that somebody is trying to hack into our site. So now that we've established the host the host that we're looking for, and WordPress seems to be the direction that we would suggest for most people. There are some reasons not to do that, and we have worked on other platforms, but WordPress is, as Charlie says, it's an open software, so there are lots of different extensions that are available. So if a client comes to us and they have a particular need that isn't met through that initial software of WordPress, that we usually can find something out there that fits the bill. If somebody is creating, and this is what they'll need, if it's an e-commerce site, they're going to purchase online.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a software out there that needs to be, that is an extension of WordPress, I believe.
Right, there's WooCommerce, which is probably the primary plugin for e-commerce. And that's going to give you all the functionality of a shopping cart. Plus, WooCommerce maintains a group of plugins that they develop themselves that cost extra, but the WooCommerce shopping cart itself is also free to use.
Okay, and WooCommerce is another piece of software that's been around for quite some time. So with that in mind, they're looking at the needs of business owners. And what does a business owner need is they need to look at their history. They need to capture information as the sales are made. They might need it to work in conjunction with some type of a shipping software too.
One of the things that our clients seem to always forget is shipping options and shipping tables that's going to determine both the carrier that you use to ship and calculating the price based on the location that you're shipping to.
Okay, that has come up often with people that are, and especially if they're gonna ship mostly in the United States, but some do ship outside the U.S. So that just brings up other needs, and there have been some instances where we needed to break down the shipping based on locations, right? So that the further away, the more expensive the shipping was. So those are things that are going to need to be thought of while you're building your site. So having a good method to start with is always a plus. It's not 100% necessary, but knowing about shipping and what kind of costs you may get into are always good to know.
Yeah, and there's lots of plugins that'll add functionality to that'll integrate with the shipping vendors like UPS or FedEx or whatever kind of shipping method you want to use.
Let's talk quickly about the bank credit card processing. That is something that we do not set up for people. They need to work with their own processor, whether it's through their bank or there's a lot of independents out there. But what kind of information do they need to give us to make that part of our WooCommerce
Well,
site?
if it's going to be through a traditional bank, they're going to need to get with their bank and set up an account, a commercial account that will actually do the processing for them. And there's going to be certain fees associated with that and a certain process that they have to go through to set that up. And then you have to connect the function of that processor to your website, and usually that's done with some type of plugin. There are also a lot of newer kind of payment processing that seem to be quite a bit simpler, like
Square?
Square, yeah, all sorts of little processors like that that are somewhat easier to use and easier to get started with.
Once we've got the basics set down, we've got a host created. You have purchased your own URL. We've established who that host is going to be. We've got WordPress in place. We've got WooCommerce on top of WordPress. There are a few other extensions that usually come up with a site like that we would put on any site, whether they're a e-commerce site or they're just more of an informative site. Can you tell a few of those things without getting too long on some of them?
Some of the biggest options are, most websites you see on the front page are some kind of image rotator. That's something you have to add, and it's very common. There's lots of different ways of doing it. And there's lots of different themes that you can use that will have a lot of functionality built in. They'll have page builders and ways of doing special effects with CSS and HTML that would be a lot more difficult to do manually by just developing your own HTML.
And a theme, for people that don't know, is a more or less a stock design.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of places out there. If you were to look up stock software or website designs, you would find a number of sites that they have hundreds.
Yeah.
And they usually charge some kind of a small fee to get started, right?
There's a lot to do. There's many. If you go to the WordPress website, wordpress.org, there's probably thousands that are free that you can start with. Some of them have basic function that's free, and then if you want some premium functions, you pay a little bit for it.
When we started this talk, you mentioned that in the process, we usually would design a site first. Mm-hmm. So if you were to buy a stock theme, there's not as much design involved, but there are some trade-offs there in that you should use the theme itself. So if it's got photos in place where you don't necessarily want photos, it may have some options of making some changes, but making major changes to those pieces are not as easy as starting from scratch, more or less.
Right.
And when we do that, when we do build our own unique theme, our own unique design, how do you build that within WordPress?
Well, we start with a framework that has a page builder and a lot of the functionality that you need, such as different ways of connecting social media. It's always popular. Different kind of sliders, different ways of displaying images with some sort of interactive rollovers or functions that happen when you click on something. But you can style every aspect of all those things from within that page builder.
I don't want to assume that our viewers know about this, but when a website is built, and it wasn't always like this, but it certainly is now, that when you view the site on a laptop or you view the site on a mobile phone, you're going to get the same information, but it's displayed differently.
Yeah, definitely want to look for it. Make sure you're using if you buy a theme or use a theme, that there's that responsive functionality built into it.
So any way that your customers find you, your website's going to display and be useful to them and be able to be purchased off of as well. Let's talk a little bit about the other information that a customer is going to need when they've got a product, a series of products. What do we normally need for them when they need to build that particular series of products on their cart? How do we go about it?
Generally, if it's more than just a couple of products, you want to set up all the products in a spreadsheet. This basic Excel spreadsheet. It's going to have names of the products with columns with different qualities of the products or aspects to the products. If you're doing something that has a product with multiple versions, you'll have to set that up in the spreadsheet.
Sizes
or colors or things like that.
or flavors
Or
even.
flavors, yeah.
Okay.
And you get a spreadsheet, and then you can take all that data at once and just import it into the shopping cart.
And that makes it
So much easier, yes.
Okay. All right. And one thing that it could go into that spreadsheet, I'm not sure if it is, and you can correct me if, since I'm not sure, are the images.
Yeah, you can. You can make a column in the spreadsheet that'll give the paths, the actual URL that the images are, and then it'll link them automatically.
Okay. So, and you may already have something like that done, but a lot of times, and I'm sure most people have shopped online on a cart of some sort, and you will go to a particular product and you will see different views of that same product, left view, right view, top, whatever it is, whatever is necessary. And a lot of times you'll see other informative information which end up being an image on that series of photos that could be displayed. And that's a common feature of the shopping cart, but not always something that customers start thinking of.
Right.
The other thing that they don't think of is descriptive copy for those products as well.
Yeah.
Not just technical information, but some kind of copy that's actually going to sell the product. Whatever that product is, I'm sure that there's a use for it, and you want to talk to that particular audience in terms that will help sell your product. Let's talk about specials, or say you wanted to run a promotion on your site.
Yeah. That's usually called a coupon code often, or you can have certain products just called out as on sale, a percentage off.
And how is that achieved? Is that part of the software that we've loaded, or is that?
Yeah, most of that kind of functionality, it's a pretty common thing, so it's included in the basic WooCommerce shopping cart. Coupon codes, I believe, are included. I'll have to double check that. Maybe I'll leave a link in the description to make sure I'm right about that. But there's often things you can put on sale that'll put a special little flag on the corner of it. I'm sure you've seen that with a certain discount price.
Or perhaps free shipping.
Free shipping, yeah.
Over a certain dollar value.
Yeah, exactly.
Other things that people might want to have on their site, Charlie, like perhaps like reviews.
And that'll be part of the basic WooCommerce shopping cart install. There's basic area that you can turn on that'll let people leave comments and leave reviews. You don't have to have it on, but you can turn it on.
Right. And even social engagement, that type of thing.
Be plenty of plugins to add share buttons and like buttons, those sort of things.
Right. Or even have a little trail of
a feed of your existing social media accounts.
Right. Which, if that's where your audience is, probably well worth having it. There are some things that we can do to help you become found online, and we think they're basic things that you should be doing, but not everybody always does that. And now I'm talking about some forms of search engine optimization, but I don't want to get too far down into that because I think that takes us a little bit out of what this particular video is about. But it is important to have names for all your images.
Mm-hmm.
It's important to have a title and a meta description for every product that's on your site.
Every page, every product, yeah.
And every page. So you may have a site that wants to contain a blog on it. And a blog is a good way to create content around your particular types of products that people may find online before they find your particular product. Mm-hmm. Unless you have the most unique product out there where putting in the name of that kind of a product is only going to bring them to your site. But the chances of that are probably slim. So you want to be able to be found by your audience. There's always a few things that we add to sites as well when we're building that give us some tracking information. And I'm talking about basic free add-ons like Google Analytics.
You should open a Google Analytics account. That way you can start from the very beginning. You can have Google Analytics tracking data, tracking visitor data. So you develop a starting point for that, and you have a baseline as you move forward that you can see exactly what's working. You can see the number of visitors that are coming. So you know that when you're doing things trying to affect SEO, improve SEO, you'll know if it's working or not.
Right.
Yeah.
So you'll be able to see the traffic. You'll be able to see generally where they're coming from.
Right.
Maybe not all parts of the country. Maybe just certain parts. Maybe just your particular region. Maybe you were at a trade show and then all of a sudden you start seeing a lot of traffic from that trade show. So it's a free plugin. Right. So and it's worth it. There are others out there that you can pay for. That might give you a little bit more insight, but I know Google has been around for as long as Google's been around. Can you think of anything that we didn't discuss here that might be important to someone looking at an e-commerce site?
I would consider when you're setting up a site that you can do things a la carte. You can go and shop for the best host that you think is going to be out there. You can shop around your domain name, which people wouldn't think of, but there's often deals you can find from different registrars that'll give you better prices per year than others. So definitely shop around for that. And when you look at credit card processing, consider the transaction fees and what type of processing you're going to select. Because that, in the very beginning, it might not make a lot of difference, but if you become much more successful, those fees can really add up. Yeah.
Okay.
And that comes out of your bottom line. So
that's true. And that's why you're going online. So, all right. Well, thank you, Charlie, for that information. And I hope you found this video useful. If it was, please leave us a comment. If you thought we missed something, leave us another comment. And I hope that we get to talk to you soon. If you have an e-commerce need, please give us a call. We'd be happy to discuss how we can help.
And I'll make sure I put links to a lot of the stuff that we discussed in the description.
Okay. All right.
Thank you. Bye-bye.